To our Audi RS6 car designing course in Blender. We're going to continue designing the rear of our vehicle. We have a great start so far, and some things I've learned recently designing this car. Now, as like I said previously, I use a combination of videos and images to design vehicles in Blender. Something that I've noticed specific is that this design cue, this design choice that we were working on in the previous episode, basically that little lip right there, this is specifically to the GT, the RS6 GT. On the normal RS6, I believe this is non-existent, and on the older RS6 versions, I believe this wasn't there. So the GT is very specific, so we want to keep that in mind. But from this angle, you can definitely see that, you know, it gives a really good perspective of what we're going to be designing next and how we might want to approach this design. Like for instance, this crease that goes all the way around the vehicle, we want to plan that out right now. This is another great perspective of how everything looks. Like I said, this crease, we want to get that planned out because the blueprint will help us with this. And then we can get some other vertices to get that design further inwards, basically following the rest of the car unit, not to mention this crease right there. So everything is in place and we're just going to get started. So as per usual, we're going to hide some of this design that is unnecessary. We're just going to tuck some of that away that we don't really want right now. So that crease right there, we're going to get those vertices going. And amazingly, we can use these existing vertices by duplicating those. I just remember actually, let's make sure that we got screencast keys turned on. And then we're going to press P to separate these vertices. Let's bring this back slightly because you can see right there that crease that follows the design around. That's that crease we want to get. And these vertices, we might bring those out a little bit more also. So it's a little bit like that. And if anything, it looks like it's actually lowered. So we're going to press G, Z, and lower that. Bring that back a little bit, bring it up a little bit. Now, because it's the rear of the vehicle, we can actually trust the rear blueprint a little bit more than anything else. So we're going to carry this group of vertices down slightly. We're also going to need a group of vertices right there as well. Let's not forget that key information. So we'll keep those there for now. But if anything, these ones, they need to be closer inwards with the rest of the design as we had previously. So this will make sense as we go further along. But for some of you that are already more experienced with Blender, it probably already makes some portion of sense. So we're going to extrude a vertice. I have a feeling it can be around there somewhere. Something else that I just noticed is that it's at an angle. So it's not straight, but it's at an angle. Kind of like that. Like you can see this entire thing is at an angle. It's not flat. That's what I mean to say. So this simply means that we need to rotate this on the x-axis. Kind of like that. So let's zoom in a little bit. Press RX, rotate slightly, and carry this up slightly. If it's rotated too much, we can always press RX and rotate it back a little bit. We don't want to make sure that it's not slanted too much, you know, that it makes sense. Now we're going to extrude again and keep that around there. Make sure it's at an angle. So we're going to carry this down as well. We want to keep it like at an angle. It's quite an important part. Now right there as well, carry that one down. It's at an angle, it's slanted. I'm a little bit concerned about this vertice, wondering if we should bring this out a little bit more. We could. Even these ones as well, you can see that, yeah, we can actually adjust this as well. But we might have to remember that we might have to bring, you know, readjust that if we have any issues going further. But it's just to keep that uniform design that Audi has given us as a challenge. But so far so good. It definitely looks like it's online, you know. Now the thing about this design is that all of this is quite tucked in, and then as it gets closer to the wheel arch, that's where everything bulges out because of that wide body design. So we're going to need another vertex extruded around this area, I would say. Not too close to the wheel arch. Definitely not too close to the wheel arch. Viewing this from top also, we need to make sure that it's around that area. Definitely remember to view this from the rear also to make sure it makes sense, because that's the blueprint that we're putting a lot of our trust in. Especially around this area, you can see that this wants to be brought down a little bit, which may feel kind of strange because it feels like it's starting from a high point to a low point. And right now it feels kind of wonky, but we will only know in due time. Now you see this vertex right here, we're going to duplicate this and we're going to press P to separate. This is where it starts. We're going to extrude, carry that way, view this from the rear and carry it over to the left hand side. And have it slanted somewhat. Even that part of the car is slanted, very specific design. We're going to extrude once again. And remember, looking at this from the rear, carry this to the left-hand side once again. Extrude once again and press G, Z and slant it once again. View it from the rear and you need to adjust it to the left-hand side. So like I said, this part of the design, this part right here, it's kind of extruded outwards a little bit. So I'm going to want to view this from the top also. View this from the top and carry this out. You can see it right there. Just carry that out just a little bit. But we might need another vertex around there, in my personal opinion, and carry that to the left-hand side. And then we're going to fill face and fill face once again. Right now it may look super untidy, but we're going to try to adjust this a little bit more like that. Like the whole point of that is that there's a crease. There's a crease going on right there. And the rest of that is like, it's almost like it's designed separately. So even this area right here, feels like that's like designed separately. View this from the top, might have to bring this back just a little bit, not too much at all. And extrude that further down like that. Then we want to carry this design out, yeah, following that perfect line. Now you see this line right here, this crease that is indented, it is not so much difference when it comes to distance. So if we duplicated this, we can actually carry this down and carry this back just a little bit and just adjust it. Viewing this from the top, that's actually not too bad actually. Make sure we view this from the rear also. That this part is tucked in just a little bit, so is this part. And let's extrude one more vertex right there. And naturally we carry this back just a little bit. Keeping that distance, you know, there is that distance in between these vertices. At the vertices at the top, there is that distance. We're going to fill those faces. This might be a little bit tricky. We're going to fill those faces. Again, we're just seeing if this works, but we're going to move this back to the rear as it should be. Should be around there. Oh, to be honest, it should be on the same level with this part. Just to keep that in mind. Like all of this should be on the same level. Either the same level or roughly the same level. Let's move this up just a little bit. So we need to fill that face as well. It's kind of like, let's move these vertices across to the right hand side just a little bit. But just to give you an idea of what we're trying to accomplish, if we get our knife tool using K, it's kind of like this, if I'm being completely honest. It is kind of like that. And then press enter. It's kind of like this. And obviously these need to be closer, slightly closer. And then add a vertex in there. It's kind of like that in my honest opinion. Honestly, if this doesn't work, I'm not afraid to redesign this. If you select all of these vertices and you move this back, you can actually make that more prominent just to show what we're trying to accomplish. It's obviously not that prominent, but it's a little bit prominent. Honestly, even before you do that, you can obviously save this in different increments. If you want to be careful not to mess up the design, And instead of moving it with that vertice connected, just these three vertices right there, just move these three back just a little bit. Doesn't have to be too much. On second thought, an alternative is to move this loop cut that we added. We can move that one, and that's how it would affect our design. You can actually move all three of these, something like that. But also, I don't think it has to be that obvious. Like, it just needs to be very subtle. And these, we're going to press double G, separate that a little bit. Press double G with that one as well. We don't want it to be too obvious. Check this out with our matte cap and see how that looks. So that's looking a little bit better if I'm being completely honest. Now remember, these are actually connected, so we'll connect those sooner than later. But sometimes when you're designing complex areas or area, it's good to take your time, do one stage at a time. Don't rush it, honestly. Just take it one step at a time. But something with these designs is that this area, it's definitely more indented on our image. But if we check real footage of this design, then you see it's more gradual. It's all very gradual. So I'd say based on what we have, that's actually quite correct. Based on this video, based on this image. Based on this image, it looks a little bit different, but that could be angle. Now with these, we get to join these, so Control J. Let's go back to our studio mode, and then we can sort of like start figuring this out. So for one, we're going to want to extrude this once again, probably around that area. And let's press GY and carry this back. We're going to extrude once again, further up there. We're going to join those vertices in a moment, GY, and there we go. Now we can actually just merge those at center. We're going to move this forward just a little bit closer around there. We can add a vertex right there if we'd like. This also makes it easier to connect these. Now that wouldn't work too well, so we got to undo that, and we need to add another vertex right there. So when we are connecting these, it will flow a lot better. Connect those also and fill those also. And now see how this looks. Looks good, but I think we can do a lot better in terms of the placement of this vertex. Just to check that out. Yeah, I think that's looking a little bit better. With these vertices, we might have to bring those down just to, keep in with the form. Might have to bring those one down also. So that's looking a little bit better in my opinion. And we're going to add another vertex right there. And we're going to fill once again. Check out how that looks. Okay, how are we going to do this part? That's an interesting thing. How will we do that part? Now you see these vertices right there, that's a little bit hidden. I have a feeling we can extrude those just a little bit, including this one. Kind of like that. Honestly feels like could do with some adjustment because this area should be a little bit more rounded. Kind of like that. What we could do with this vertex as well is just press double G, carry it to the right, press GY and carry it inwards a little bit. That way it just round it all off. I'm going to carry this one out just a little bit also. Now as for this part, we could just add a vertex right there and fill. That's a way of getting it done. Could add another vertex right there, fill that one as well, and continue like that. That's an option. But you can see these vertices are a little bit too close to it together, so we might have to separate those, and we might have to just bring this one out just a little bit. That looks a little bit better. Similar thing with this vertex. Similar thing with this vertex right there. We might just have to bring that one out just a little bit so it just follows the design a little bit better. View this from the side and probably just carry this in just a little bit also. This vertex right here, just carry this one out just a little bit. And now from the rear, obviously, we need to make sure that all of this is in place. Now this vertex is creating a little bit too much problems for us. We're just going to dissolve that vertex. This one, we can just press double G, carry this one down a little bit. And for these ones, we want them to be roughly on the same level. Just press S, Z, and 0. Or we can just carry this one up just a little bit like that. And same thing to do with those, we just level them up. And with these ones, we can just move it towards the left-hand side a little bit. From the top, we can actually move those out also, and we can just separate them as we spoke about before, just how much better it would be if those were in slightly different positions. Take a real good look at the rear of this vehicle so we know what we're doing next. It's also important to see this vehicle from the side profile to just know how the design flows. So we can start designing the lower unit right there at the bumper, just the lower part of the bumper. A nice close-up shot like this really gets the greatest detail. So this group of vertices, we can actually just basically just duplicate that actually. But before we do that, I think these should be flat. But before we do that, I think these need to be brought out a little bit, and these ones also, naturally. And we're also going to carry them down just a little bit because it's just following a natural flow of everything. Now we can duplicate this, press G and Z and carry this down, and P to separate. Now with this general area, I just don't like how it's uneven, so we're just going to press S and Z and flatten this a little bit. And with these vertices, going to carry this down a little bit more. Well, actually, it's okay for now. With these ones, we're going to move those one up. Not all of them, of course, but these ones in particular. Kind of already looks like it's pre-made for us. So these ones, we can actually carry those down a little bit like that. Carry this one back a little bit like that. And carry this one down. Carry it forward a little bit. And we're going to carry it out kind of like that. And similar thing with that. Now we can probably join these once again, but let's just save that document first. Control J. And then because everything was duplicated from this side, it will fill like almost automatic, almost like that. Now if you're curious why this doesn't look so good yet, we need to add our crease right there. So a loop cut. We can also add a loop cut right there, and you can see we don't actually need to move that up or down, but instantly it improves the entire flow. And that's what we're going for. Perfect. Now we get to design the lower areas, such as down here, just behind the wheel area. We get to design there, so we can duplicate these vertices, carry them down. This vertex right here needs to be moved inwards just a little bit, and these ones right here should be almost flat. But the problem is these ones are too far out. But first we're going to move this one inwards like that. Going to move this one there. Going to move this one around there. Then we're going to bring this down, bring all of them down really. Carry this one back just a little bit and see how it looks from that area. Now from the rear, we're actually going to rotate this just a little bit. Not in any particular axes, just in general. Then we're going to connect these. We're going to fill those faces naturally and fill those faces also. And see how that looks from the rear. It actually looks pretty damn good. And there's a side skirt at the rear right there, but it's very subtle. If anything, there's a slight indent. You can see right there, like the vertices are indented, so there's a slight indent. So we're going to extrude once more. See this for ourselves at the rear and move it across kind of like that. Probably move this one down a little bit also. Now from this area, we can move that one to the left and this one also. Now there need to be a vertex around this area, well, a loop cut, I should say. And this entire thing is what's like indented. Well, to be honest, these vertices, to be specific, it's kind of like it's indented. Another thing I also noticed is that there's another small detail is that there is a crease around this area, as you can see right there, which means these ones are probably going to have to carry those ones out again. But this side, we can carry that side in and then add another loop right there, something like that. But these vertices are probably too far inwards. So let's dissolve those. Let's carry this one out a little bit, not too much, and let's add another loop. That's a lot better. Although those ones are a bit more unlevel. In other words, they're kind of like separated, kind of like that. So it's not that obvious. And with these ones, it's a very similar thing. That's a very similar thing. So it's actually very subtle. And carry this to the rear a little bit, and then carry these ones closer together. It's a little bit like that, almost like it's a little bit of a pinch. And this one, separate these also. We're also going to separate these quite a bit. We're going to continue to separate these vertices just to keep everything, like just to make sure that they're not too close, as they really shouldn't be too close. It's a little bit more like that. But as you can see from the side profile, these need to be brought forward just a bit more to line up correctly with the rest of the design. Also, this area, we're just going to move that across just a little bit. So it's a little bit more like that. Now we're actually going to join these two, and we're going to start merging. We're going to move these one up just a little bit, get those on level. Going to add another loop around there. We're going to fill those. Pretty much just fill this entire gap right there and join those. And as you can see, these, they need to be brought up quite a bit more. So officially now, that's actually looking a lot better. Let's bring everything back. Let's see how it's looking. And let's make sure we add a mirror modifier. And as for our mirror modifier, we need to get this to the cube, because that's what we're basing everything from. Now with this group of vertices, we're actually going to just move this to the left-hand side a little bit. Add another loop cut right there. Deselect that vertice and just press double G, carry this back to the center. So right there, it's sharp. This area we might need to sharpen up as well, but in order to do that, I have a feeling we'll add a loop right there. And this area is where we might need to adjust a little bit. And I think with this group of vertices, we'll just carry this up professionally, of course. Yeah, that's looking a little bit better. Probably carry this up a little bit more. Also, just carry this a little bit to the rear. And these two, carry these a little bit to the rear also. I think we did a pretty damn good job with this overall. And now with this area, we just have to make this make sense. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to carry this back a little bit. Notice we might need to just get that away. With this group of vertices right there, we might just need to delete vertices. Now with this group of vertices, we're just going to carry this in a little bit. We got to make sure this is aligned, so got to sort of like bring that in even more. Obviously, not too much. Now with this group of vertices, we're actually going to move this around. And with these, with these ones, we're just going to press double G and just carry those back just a little bit. With these ones, we'll just tap double G, carry those one back just a little bit, not too much at all. Now with this area, we need a loop cut around there. With this area, we actually need a single vertice. We're just going to dissolve those vertices. Then we're just going to dissolve this edge. This final vertice, we're going to dissolve that and rejoin these group of vertices. We're going to add another loop cut around this area just to make sure that aligns, for fuck's sake. Now this area, we're going to need another loop cut. So we're going to add some single verts as well to help us out. We're going to carry those across to the left-hand side, and then we're going to join those. Now on this side, we just have to line this up so it looks appropriate. And to compromise, we might have to just carry this out just a little bit, kind of like that, but we can use some of those vertices to our advantage and sort of manipulate this design. Add another loop cut around there, and so we'll have to carry this down just a little bit, not too much, and sharpen up that area right there so it's following closer. We'll sharpen this up a little bit more, almost like that. And if later we decide we need to adjust this even more, then that's exactly what we'll do. We'll carry this out just a little bit, and we'll carry this part out just a little bit also. And these vertices, we'll also carry those out just a little bit. Now when I say clean up, I literally mean we're just going to adjust some of these vertices, such as these ones. We're just going to carry those up, especially these ones, to just make sure that it's on the same level. You can see On this side, we don't really have vertices running there. We could, but at the moment, we don't want to overcomplicate it. We want to keep it simple. But we have a lot of vertices running upwards in this particular direction. So we want to keep that in mind and just readjust them somewhat until they're all in place. Particularly at the rear end, you want to keep in mind that we might have to put vertices right around there as well. But like I said, we want to avoid that at the moment. What we could do is readjust this just by pressing double G, and it fits with the blueprint as well. And as for this side, we just need to carry those forward just a little bit, including this side also. So slowly but surely we're getting there. Sometimes we just gotta manually adjust some of this in order to get it to work. So after a few moments of readjusting, you can see just how much better that looks. We might have to just move some of these vertices a little bit out, kind of like that. But you can see how significantly better that looks. Another thing I was thinking about was naturally this side, getting those lined off. So putting a loop cut right there seems to really help. Now putting a loop cut right here, that was interesting because it gave us this that we don't really want. We're trying to avoid that. We're trying to get something similar to that. So trying to have it super clean, but obviously you can see the issues that may come with that. But also an option that we have is just to dissolve those and see how that would look. Probably dissolve this one also just to test how that would look. And we might have to just do something like that. Nope, doesn't like that at all. I noticed there's a little line right here that I don't particularly like. You can sort of see that, and I don't really like that. So we're gonna add loop cut right there, carry it as close as possible, and then we're going to dissolve that one, or just delete that group. The unique thing about this is that we don't need to adjust it too much. But you can see up there, it's rather obvious. We might need to move these vertices across just a little bit, but it's right here. This is the area that we need to sharpen up. Naturally, without creating an absolute mess. So I added a loop cut right there, and I'm just going to move these towards the center just a little bit and see if that works. It does slightly. Only slightly. You can see it still doesn't quite like that. I notice also that this area could do with a little bit of cleaning up. So all we need to do is to just use this vertice, press double G, and it will sort of close out that gap. It'll help to clean it up quite nicely. With the rest of this, we just need to carry this out just a little bit more. Helps to close up that gap also. We're also going to add another loop cut on this side just to clean that up. And we can probably add one there as well, but we want to see what effect that would have on our design. Can hardly notice a difference. Then again, I said hardly. Can hardly notice a difference. Not so sure if I like it entirely, so we're going to readjust that to the center just a little bit. And with these ones, we can actually just move those to the right hand side just a little bit. That looks somewhat better. Ah, I saw something. Thought this might need some adjusting. Okay. So we need to carry that one away a little bit. Just readjusting some of these. May need to just carry this within just a little bit. Not too much, of course. And see how that looks from that angle. Looks okay. Just adjust it a little bit more. That looks a lot better. That looks really clean. You know, something I also just noticed, this area we might be able to just leave that as it is, unbothered. And the reason why is because the light unit protrudes. It protrudes out. You see, from this angle, the light unit actually protrudes outwards. So that's a good thing. So we might need to just leave that as it is, unbothered, untouched. Something else I noticed is that we might need to slightly carry these up just a little bit, not too much, because from the side profile, you can see it's at an angle. Just like we were discussing before, it's all of this is slightly at an angle. And if we adjust this one a little bit also, not too much, but this is all slightly at an angle. And it's not easily noticeable either, but it's slightly at an angle. So that's looking a lot better for this episode. I still don't like how this looks, but let's shade smooth. It still feels like it's not correct, you know? And honestly, to help this area just feels a little bit better, we might just separate this somewhat, because the closer we have everything is the more apparent this problem becomes. But if we separate it slightly, looks better already. If we wanted to over exaggerate things, we could add another loop cut there and add another loop cut right there. But I think that might be heavily unnecessary. But if you did choose to do that, it's your choice. But you can always readjust a lot of these vertices if you wanted to. That's also an option, to be honest. Yeah, that's also an option, but you don't have to. Whichever you think looks better. But you know, even with this many vertices, it doesn't look bad. It doesn't actually affect it that much. You know, sometimes having too many vertices can really mess with the design. Like looking at it from this angle, you can clearly see we placed too many vertices, it messed with the design. But if we undo some of those, gone back to normal, just like it was before. And even from above, we can also adjust some of these if we're not completely happy with just how it looks, because it feels like there's still that gap right around there. I don't quite like it, to be honest. So we'll continue to adjust it until it fits. I don't want the gaps to be too apparent. That's the thing. I want it to have some subtlety to it. But it's also your design, you know, it's your choice. Another thing I also noticed is that this area, we might be able to just fix this up. We might be able to join those and carry this up a little bit more and add another loop right there. Now, because this is in a corner, it actually won't mess with our design as much. It won't mess up our design as much, essentially. Actually, let's keep this there. Yeah, like that. It actually removes the jitter. Like, I don't like this feeling right there that it gives, that it's like something is wrong. Even here also, like we have another one literally right there. And you can see instantly it looks a little bit better, but now it makes it too obvious, like where everything is sort of like heading. And I don't want it to look too obvious. I want it to have some subtlety, kind of like that. But obviously, as you know, that is a difficult thing to do. What if we join those? It's exactly what we're told to like avoid doing when designing is to make triangles. Squares are ideal. This is an interesting choice. Joining these. Merging these vertices, that's an interesting choice. It's a bit of a mad idea as well. I really don't recommend it, but can always give it a go to see if it works. How ironic that it does work, kind of. Strange. It is strange to me that it works. Not entirely, but you gotta admit, that doesn't look too bad, does it? But also, you might not even need that part. Here's another one also. If you wanted to merge these, you could also merge these. Yeah, it actually doesn't look too bad, which is strange, because like I said, this is what we try to avoid when doing this exact very thing, but for some reason it's working, which I really didn't think it would work, but it's working. How about these ones? Can we merge these ones also? Probably can, and it probably wouldn't look too bad at all, especially compared to the real design. It does not look that bad at all. So that's good to know. And basically, I believe that part is basically good. Now this area, we might need to just adjust this area a little bit. I'm gonna add a loop cut inside there. We're gonna use this part and carry that up. Well, might be easier said than done. That is indeed easier said than done. Actually, let's just add a loop right there. remove those and dissolve edges, dissolve vertice, and join those once again. Okay, you can see we did this right over there. Worked okay. But now that we tried again, it's a lot less forgiving. So with that being said, let's try it on the other side. Let's see for ourselves. Dissolve edges. Okay, now that works. At least it looks like it works. You know, this is why the matte cap is so important. You can always check these things using your matte cap to make sure it works. But hey, that's pretty damn good work. Congrats if you've made it this far. You're doing terrific. Remember to subscribe, leave a like, and leave a comment. You know, if you have any solutions to some of these problems and you can offer advice, because there's a lot of people doing this. So if anyone has any advice that could be helpful for the community, yeah, please share your advice, because they could be helpful to other people that are still learning. I mean, we're all still learning, to be honest. Just trying something right here, but I don't know if you can see that. What is that? That line right there. Got that line right there, and it's no idea what that is. But we're going to undo some of what we just did and see if we can find the issue. That is so strange. What if we delete faces? Naturally, we want to fill these faces once again. Same thing there. But ironically, that doesn't fix the issue. Seems like it's coming from around there. But I can't be the only one who sees that. Okay, that's strange. To me at least, that is a little bit odd. And it's very subtle. You can barely notice it. But that's it for this episode. Hope you're enjoying the course so far, and I'll see you in the next one.